Zoran won a race where you had ranked choice voting and you also had various forms of donation matches, which played a huge role in his ability to take advantage of what the city could offer. Because remember, you're never going to outraise corporate infrastructure, whether it's Adams or Cuomo or anybody else. Or in the case of Michigan, it's Haley Stevens. But in New York City, when you have matching funds, that makes a huge difference. What El Said was able to do in Michigan is monumental in its own right. I said it was monumental for Zoran to win, and I still mean that, and I am not changing my tune on that one at all. But it is 1,000% even more monumental what Said was able to do because he did it statewide in a swing state against everything. The kitchen sink the Israel lobby threw at him, and he was still able to win. Now, I still maintain the biggest reason he was able to win is because he was a great candidate. He is a great candidate because he's still going, and Haley Stevens was terrible. That, as much as anything, was the primary reason he was able to win. With that being said, I have said before that the spiraling of the Zionists is going to be very dangerous and very detrimental to a lot of people. And this is no exception. The violent rhetoric that is going to spew is going to be very aggressive and very dangerous. And the person who appears to be spewing the most right now is Laura Loomer. And in case one wants to forget, and I'm going to share my story in a minute, but I want people to remember who Laura Loomer is. She explained it a couple of months ago with Batya Al-Sargon, I think is how you say her name, on her show.
I am the person who informed the president of everything that Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens and Alex Jones were saying about him. And despite preparing a lot of these reports for the White House, it's my understanding a lot of this information was not given to explain in full, which is alarming because you have to ask yourself who surrounding the president is serving as a gatekeeper for the woke right.
Well, as it turns out, you are the person who is doing this. She freely admits, I have the president's ear. I am her tattletale. I am her, what you would call the hall monitor. This is her role. And I'm sure she's paid very well to do it, especially when she gets to travel internationally. We can make fun of her looks, and I know a lot of people like to do that. But I want to remind you guys of what I had to deal with Looney Loomer. This is the person who cost me my job. This is the person who got me fired. This is a person who had one of her closest friends reach out to my brokerage here in the Florida Panhandle and tell them, you fire Peter Hager or you're going to have hell to pay. Now, initially they said they weren't going to give in. And within 24 hours, close of business on a Friday, they sent me an email saying your service is no longer needed here. They never told me who it was, but I was able to piece it together. This person is a lunatic. We call her Looney Loomer for a reason. It isn't because we're trying to score points here. We're saying this because she is an absolutely dangerous individual who is fully protected by our government all the way to the top to the President of the United States. So when people wonder, how is it that this psychopath is able to get away with her behavior? How is she so freely able to go out there and talk about, I'm going to end this person's life, I'm going to end that person's life? I'm not going to show the image because it's something like out of The Thing. If anybody's seen The Thing, you'll know what I'm referring to. Somebody posted a picture that went viral on X a little while ago. And one of the things that the image showed, which was so telling, it really was. The thing about the image that was very telling was that rather than say you're effed up, you shouldn't make fun of people's looks, blah, blah, blah. No, what Loomer decided to do was respond and say, hey, that looks like a recent IOF attack on Gaza. She gleefully supports genocide. She gleefully supports mass murder. She don't care. That's why she's doing what she's doing. And if you think for 1 second that she is going to temper her words or potentially go in another direction, oh no. No, she has decided to implement a blood libel, and it isn't just against one person in particular, although Hasan Piker is feeling her wrath as we speak. But this is number one. This is in response. This is in response, mind you, to what happened. This is in response to Abdul El Sayed winning his race in Michigan. To all my followers, one day you're going to wake up and there will be dozens, if not hundreds, of communities surrounded by Islamic military-age men who are armed. They will simultaneously carry out October 7th style attacks in American communities. And there won't be enough law enforcement to respond. Thousands of Americans will die. It will be a hostage situation. And when it happens, it will be too late to stop what comes next. I want all of my followers to buy ammo and weapons to protect themselves from the jihad that is going to be unleashed on the US. If you can afford to, build a safe room in your home. These people are going to come after you and your children, and anyone who says otherwise is setting you up to be conquered. History shows with what happens when jihadis gain political power. I just hope Americans prepare. I know what the future holds, and it won't be pretty for our country. Please prepare. Don't become a statistic. And this is again, in totality, in response to what she had initially said regarding Abdul El Sayed's victory. At this point in time, I am convinced the GOP is going to allow Americans to be slaughtered by Muslims. Now, again, like I said, this is the ranting and raving of a crazy person, but nevertheless. Additionally, I would encourage all of my followers to form neighborhood watch groups to keep tabs on your local mosques and Islamic centers in a peaceful manner. I think these places need to be surveilled by citizens 24/7, since our government won't do it. It's not a crime to have citizen watch groups that report suspicious behavior to police and FBI. You should start researching and studying up on Islamic centers in your community. You see where this is going? And reporting all suspicious activity that originates from these Islamic centers. Many of these places have live streams of their services where you can see what is being said. Yeah, Allah Akbar. God is great. I say that a lot. Oftentimes, the imams preach violence, and yet they face no accountability. I have been to enough mosque services to know that you are full of absolute, utter shit. Now, are you referring to somebody like Louis Farrakhan as the head of the Muslim Brotherhood? Well, that's a different story. But again, it only takes one. It takes one outlier for her to say that this is how everybody is. Start watching and saving all of those clips. Oh, believe me, you'll get a few psychopaths that will do that for you. When Islamic communities take over the House and Senate, and they abolish the police and abolish ICE and DHS, we won't have anyone to help us. These policies are largely being pushed by Islamic communist candidates in preparation for the war they plan to declare on non-Muslim Americans. If you don't prepare for this, you and your children will probably be slaughtered by these jihadists. Crazy, right? I think about this every single day, and I just want that to be known because my entire career, people have called me crazy for saying things like this. That's because you are. You're certifiably insane. But I want this to be on the record so that when it does happen, people realize I was trying to warn the public to save Americans from what our bleak future holds. We are going to be attacked by Islamic militants, and nobody will come to save us. It is up to Americans to prepare. Now, I'm not convinced that Looney Loomer is the person who's going to go out there and do the task. she is hoping, against all hope, that somebody else will go out there and do the dirty work for her. That's what she's counting on. That's what so many of these insane ranting individuals are hoping for, that a crazy person in the audience is the one who's going to take up arms and is going to go out there and do the task. That's what they're hoping for. And if you think I'm wrong, if you think I am exaggerating what Loomer is actually talking about here, one of these days, Hasan Piker is going to talk shit to the wrong person. And then I'm going to make that person a give, send, go. Now, what she's actually saying here, in case you're wondering what this reference is, she's basically insinuating that if for whatever reason somebody decides to, take out Hasan Piker, that she's going to be right there to back up that person and make sure that they're okay. Get them out of jail, bond, etc. But this is a person who's absolutely out of her mind. And these are legitimate threats. I don't think anybody should be taking this lightly. The language she's using is extremely volatile and dangerous, and it is going to get people hurt. If not, it's going to get people killed. And she doesn't care. Do you know why she doesn't care, ladies and gentlemen? Because she, like so many other Zionist bastards walking this earth, but she in particular being a real scum sucker of the highest order, she has immunity. She can't be touched. That's why she does it. She knows who's protecting her. She knows that nothing can possibly happen to her. And as a result, she's going to continue to talk like this. Unless somebody stops her. Now, I'm not saying how anybody should go about doing that, but I want people to also understand something here. And I see from the chat, this is a very, very, very good point by Al Askaflut. The reason why she specifically targets Hasan Piker, which I have mentioned to you guys more often than not, I'm not a fan of his. I'm just not. I think that there's a lot of things about Hasan Piker that I really think people should consider when they say that they like him or that they appreciate his verbiage. I don't. I appreciate what he does to help get non-corporate progressive candidates elected into office when he moves some chess pieces on the board and gets people out to the polls to help him out. I mean, that's great. I appreciate his efforts in that regard. But his language is extremely dangerous when he talks about celebrating the Soviet Union under Stalin and Red China under Mao Zedong. This isn't anything to celebrate. This isn't anything to just casually sweep aside. You know, the amount of killing that these two nations did together, the Nazis accomplished a fraction of that. There is such thing as there being no good guys in this mix. And that's what happens when you get to two extreme ends of the spectrum when it comes to your political ideology. And this is what real extremism looks like. And again, I'm not talking about the critiques that people have regarding whether or not Hasan is a team player for the Democratic Party. He most certainly is. But spewing the type of rhetoric that he spews regarding Stalin and Zedong, whether he believes it or not, he's only feeding into the fiasco that comes with giving cannon fodder to people like Laura Loomer. What is the purpose of that if not to serve your own ego and to make more money? It isn't going to attract more people to your cause. In fact, it's going to turn them off. It's going to turn people off to the extent that they're going to go to the other side. And you don't want that. There is such thing as being politically nuanced. And I would like to think that there are at least a handful of people out there that are nuanced enough to realize that when we talk about these content creators, remember, the end goal for almost every single one of them, whether it's Laura Loomer or Hasan Piker, is to get paid. That's the top priority. And if this is how they want to go about doing it, again, I'm not looking at that example as a reason why. Remember, there is a limit to what you can appreciate about what some of these people are doing and what they're not doing. However, do not think for one second that Loomer is not threatening Piker. She most certainly is. And again, the reason she's doing it is because who's going to stop her? And don't think for a second that this falls under party lines, because we are going to conclude this particular conversation here with something from State Senator Moss, who many of you know won his congressional primary for the general election on the Democratic side in Michigan. Here's what he had to say about the state of Israel.
I don't think it's wrong to use Americans. It's not our homeland. We have been victims of anti-Semitism here.
You have an actual state senator who is now the Democratic congressional nominee in Michigan for the fall, saying, and I quote, "America is not as important as Israel." He actually said it. Now, do I suspect that he said this off the cuff to somebody that he didn't think was recording him? Yes. I don't think that this was in any way intended to go public, but it did. You think he's the only one who thinks like this and talks like this? He's one of several. This is a mainstay. This isn't anything close to an anomaly. It's just not. This just happened to leak. I'm with you, Henry. I'm with you. I hear you, pal. I hear you loud and clear. And this is exactly why, if he ends up winning, there are just as much as we can get a decent amount of people in there. There's also a lot that we have to worry about that are going to continue to cause this problem. There is something to be said for recognizing how much more dangerous it can get on the Democratic side than the Republican side. Like I said, it's the sheep versus the wolf. Always. It is always the sheep versus the wolf. With the Republicans, you always see it coming. With the Democrats, they're a little bit more sleight of hand. I'm willing to bet that Senator Moss never uttered anything close to that while he was campaigning. But now you know where he's really at. And now you understand the depths of how far this rabbit hole actually goes. It goes pretty far.